Currently, it is 72 degrees here on the campus of St. Louis Community College at Florissant Valley. I'm Jell with your noon news update. Police are trying to identify a man accused of placing a skimming device on ATM machines at a local credit union in St. Louis. The device was discovered on an American Eagle ATM on Chippewa Street in late July. Authorities released photos of the suspect. Identity thieves used skimmers to steal a victim's personal information. A little girl and an ice cream truck driver are recovering following a pit bull attack over the weekend in St. Anne. Police say the incident happened Sunday on St. Joachim Street when a pit bull bolted out of a nearby house. Both victims were treated at the hospital. The dog and other canines in the home were quarantined, and the house is now condemned by the city. Authorities are still searching for a man following a double homicide earlier this month in Ferguson. Derek Barber is wanted in the deaths of Jenny Nicole Miller and Eric Johnson. Both were shot and killed in a home on Halpin Drive. A reward of up to $5,000 is being offered for information that leads to an arrest. A group of demonstrators are complaining after being charged nearly a year after protests at the St. Louis Galleria Mall. Dozens of people packed a Richmond Heights City Council meeting last night to express frustration that officials recently decided to charge over 24 of them. Reverend Philip Duvall of Ferguson demanded officials dismiss the charges. At least 22 people were arrested at the mall last September during a protest held over the acquittal of former St. Louis police officer Jason Stockley in the deadly shooting of Anthony Smith. And St. Louis officials are agreeing to stop forcing building inspections on residents of homes raided by police. The agreement follows a lawsuit over one of those raids. A lawyer who filed the suit said yesterday that the city has also agreed to pay $160,000 to settle the case. The attorney said police would threaten to condemn a building if the residents didn't allow a building inspection. Now on to the weather. Today it is cloudy with a high of 81, low of 64. Tomorrow it will be partly cloudy with a high of 80, low of 60. Thursday, partly cloudy, high of 80, low of 63. Friday, we got thunderstorms in the morning with a high of 81, low of 71. And Saturday, it will be mostly sunny with a high of 92, low of 75. Currently, it's 72 degrees here at KCFV. I'm Jell, and this has been your noon news update. But please stay tuned, because after a short break, we will be back with GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m., though that time slot may be changing quite soon. I will keep you posted. We like to kick the show off with what the new games are for this week, what's coming out next week, and what anime are in theaters, followed by all sorts of random video game news. Until then, though, here is Circles by Cavo, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. That was Circles by Cavo here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. Although that time slot may be changing, I will see if I can find something out today. And, of course, I will keep you posted on the GameBabble YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/user/GameBabble Show. Anyway, we like to kick the show off every week with what the new games are for this week, what's coming out next week, and what anime are in theaters. So, this week on PlayStation 4, what have we got? Well, we got All-Star Fruit Racing, which is a decent-looking kart racer. Brawl Out, which is a decent-looking Smash Brothers clone. Candleman, The Complete Journey. Dead Cells, a very nice-looking indie Metroidvania roguelike thing that a lot of people are really liking. Fall of Light, Darkest Edition. Guacamelee 2, sequel to the beloved game Guacamelee. Pizza Titan Ultra, which is a game about delivering pizzas in a giant robot. Shenmue 1 and 2. So if you want to catch up on your Shenmues before Shenmue 3, now is the time. You can find all sorts of sailors. Slime Rancher, which is an interesting first-person game about ranching slimes in space. Socketeer. Spectrum, and Track Lab, which is a VR music mixing game. Anyway, tomorrow we've got Out of the Box and Super Life of Pixel, followed by Warhammer 40k Inquisitor Martyr. And then on the 24th, we have F1 2018, Gunhouse, Little Dragon's Cafe, which is from some of the original creators of Harvest Moon, if I recall correctly. Mother Gunship. The PlayStation 4 500 million limited edition console comes out. And Salt and Sanctuary will be hitting PlayStation 4 this week. On Xbox One, we've got All-Star Fruit Racing and Brawlout, as well as Shenmue 1 and 2, and Tyler Model 005. On the 23rd, Warhammer 40k Inquisitor Martyr comes out, followed by Distrust, Don't Sink, F1 2018, Haunted, Halloween 86, The Curse of Possum Hollow, Mother Gunship, Phantom Doctrine, Planet of the Apes, Last Frontier, and Spectrum. Nintendo Switch, what you got for us this week? Well, Nintendo Switch has Bad North, Morphe's Law, Prison Architect Nintendo Switch Edition, Spectrum, All-Star Fruit Racing, Candle, The Power of the Flame, Dead Cells, Out of the Box, The Escapist 2, The Glorious Regime, Behind the Screen, Fall of Light, Darkest Edition, Fern's Gate, Flood of Light, Gone Home, hey, that's getting a Switch port, Hacky Zack, Hollow Knight Godmaster, Caro Blaster, which is a new game from the creator of Cave Story, where you play a frog with a gun, so that might be worth looking into. Followed by My Farm, Shio, Sky Gamblers, Storm Raiders, The Low Road. On the 24th, we've got Earthworms, Little Dragon's Cafe, Limited Edition. Hey, also Night Trap 25th Anniversary Edition gets its Switch release on the 24th, as well as Space Ribbon. PlayStation Vita this week is getting Super Life of Pixel, Gunhouse, and Salt and Sanctuary. And the 3DS has nothing this week. Moving on to PlayStation 4. Next week things really pick up. Brace yourselves. PlayStation 4 next week gets, I guess, the physical release of Apex Construct. That's been pushed back again. That's a first-person PlayStation VR futuristic bow and arrow adventure game. Seems pretty neat. Been meaning to play it, actually, because it's had a digital release for quite a few months now. Moving on, though, Blade Strangers is next week. That's the crazy indie crossover fighters / Code of Princess fighting game with simplified controls, featuring not only the cast of Code of Princess, Umihara Kawase, and Cave Story, but also Shovel Knight and Binding of Isaac, all in one fighting game. Then there's Bow to Blood, a PlayStation VR competitive airship combat strategy game. Seems interesting, like you're in first person, you like command robots to man your ship while you're in first person steering it. Interesting thing. Moving on, Bridge Constructor Portal, Donut Country, Far Cry 5, Dead Living Zombies, Fire Pro Wrestling World Tour gets its PlayStation 4 port on the 28th, next week, next Tuesday, followed by Firewall Zero Hour, which we will talk about more later in the show. That is a PlayStation VR tactical first-person shooter that seems very interesting and very promising. Following that, Middle-earth Shadow of War Definitive Edition, Pato Box, Pro Evolution Soccer 2019, Rocket League Ultimate Edition, Shinkondo Soul Eater, which appears to be a bullet hell style shmup. Following that, Strange Brigade, Torn, which, hey, that's another PlayStation VR game. There are 3 PlayStation VR games coming out next week. Torn is that one's more of an adventure game that's inspired by the Twilight Zone. And following that, something I think a lot more people will be excited about, is Yakuza Kiwami. Then on the 30th, there's Haunted Dungeons, Hayaki Castle, and hey, Penguin-kun Wars finally gets its PlayStation 4 release, along with Divinity Original Sin 2 Definitive Edition, Naruto Toboroto, Shinobi Striker, and NBA 2K19, The Prelude. Xbox One next week is getting Bridge Constructor Portal, Far Cry 5, Dead Living Zombies, Middle-earth Shadow of War Definitive Edition, Pro Evolution Soccer 2019, Rocket League Ultimate Edition, Shinkondo Soul Eater, Strange Brigade, Warhammer 40k, Inquisitor Martyr, Warhammer Vermintide 2, Shadows over Bogenhofen. Then on the 31st, they get Divinity Original Sin 2 Definitive Edition, Naruto to Boruto, Shinobi Striker, NBA 2K19, The Prelude, and The Video Kid. Moving on, Nintendo Switch next week. We'll be getting Blade Strangers as well, followed by De Blob 2, getting a Switch port that was previously on the Wii. Then Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate comes out. So if you want a more traditional Monster Hunter, hey, that's hitting the Switch next week. Followed by Rocket League Ultimate Edition, The Walking Dead, The Telltale Series, the final season, Victor Vran Overkill Edition. Then on the 30th, Azure Reflections, Cheeky Cheeky Boxy Racers, which probably has nothing to do with Cheeky Cheeky Boys, but I'm not sure. Following that, Switch port of Freedom Planet. If you've never played that game, it is a really, really good Sonic the Hedgehog-inspired indie game with a greater focus on combat. The story's a little cheesy, but you can actually turn it off to start the game in classic mode, and it will remove all those annoying, pesky cutscenes for you. And yeah, it plays like a combination of Sonic the Hedgehog and Sparkster or Rocket Knight. Very nice game. I love it. I give it full thumbs up, and if you want to try it out, there's a demo on the official website. So just, do a Google search for Freedom Planet. You can download the demo on your PC. You can get it on Steam. You can get it on your Wii U. I could have sworn there was supposed to be a PS4 port, but I'm not sure about that. And they've got a sequel in the works right now, which Christian Whitehead of Sonic Mania fame helped work on the engine for the sequel. There's a demo of that on the website as well. Yes, I am definitely giving this one a thumbs up. I was very impressed by Freedom Planet. Moving on, though. Haunted Dungeons, Hayaki Castle, Pick-a-Pix Deluxe, Giant Puzzles 3, Real Politics with a K, Shinkondo Soul Eater. Hey, that's getting a Switch port. What a surprise. The Switch is quickly turning into the system for shoot-em-ups. So if you're a shmup fan, get you a Switch. Because thing with the Switch, you can flip it vertically, and then you've got your Tate mode. Good times. Following that, though, we've got The Messenger and The Video Kid. PlayStation Vita next week gets nothing, and neither does the 3DS. Although, week after next, the 3DS will be getting Yokai Watch Blasters, Red Cat Core, and White Dog Squad, along with the Vita will be getting God Wars: The Labyrinth of Yomi on September 4th. So, week after next. Anyway, that wraps up our game releases. What anime are hitting theaters next week? Well, for the rest of the month, really. So, what have we got? We've got Night is Short, Walk On Girl, which is in theaters today and tomorrow, subbed. So if you're interested in that, looks kind of artsy, you might want to look that up. Following that, Laughing Under the Clouds, Gaiden, Part 1 and 2 double feature will be in theaters from August 24th to September 15th. Check your local theaters for specific dates. I should really do that. And let's see, that wraps up August. But September is on the horizon. Just mentioned Laughing Under the Clouds. Ooh! Really? Well. Sorry, I found a website that gives me these with a lot less research. Perfect Blue will be in theaters September 6th subbed and September 10th dubbed. So, yeah, if you want to see Perfect Blue in theaters, might need to look that up. And, Dragon Ball Z Broly, the legendary Super Saiyan, will be in theaters September 15th and September 17th, dubbed only, in preparation, of course, for the new Dragon Ball Super Broly movie. So, if you're wondering when Broly, September 15th and 17th. And let's see, Haikyuu, the movie Battle of Concepts, will be in theaters September 19th, subbed. And Digimon Adventures Tri Future will be in theaters September 20th, dubbed. And let's see, I do believe, it looks like My Neighbor Totoro will be in theaters September 30th, October dubbed, October 1st subbed, and October 3rd dubbed. So, that wraps up our new game releases for this week and next week, and what anime are in theaters. All sorts of good times to be had. Oh yeah, Perfect Blue on the big screen. Very exciting. So, yeah, that is that. I will definitely kick you all back to the music, and when we get back, after a short break, we'll move on with our video game news and information. We've got all sorts of crazy things to talk about, like Windjammers 2 was just announced. We've got more information on Soul Calibur 6. We've got all sorts of things. So please stay tuned for more GameBabble Live. Until then, though, here is Hung Up on You by The Lookout, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. That was Space Mentality by Ike Zero featuring Trey Casanova, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. Just talked to the boss, and he said that I am, for right now, keeping the time slot. If a student really needs the slot, they will, of course, get priority. But until then, I am keeping the noon to 3 p.m. time slot for GameBabble Live, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. And, it's pronounced Joachim, isn't it? I just realized when I was reading the news earlier, I said something happened on St. Joachim Street. It's Joachim. It's Joachim, isn't it? That is worse. No, that is not as bad as when I pronounced Benoit as Benoit. Yo, sometimes, some names, I read things phonetically most of the time. Anyway, on to video game news. So, this is one of the latest things, and I kind of just want to talk about this because it's amusing the crap out of me. Last year, Tencent Games, big Chinese game, just a big Chinese company in general, mentioned that their popular mobile MOBA Arena of Valor, mobile MOBA, that's a good one, Arena of Valor, which is a MOBA, will be heading to the Switch. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I mean, I don't know how many people need not League of Legends on their Switch, but it's free. Can't argue with free, except for the fact that you gotta pay for a bunch of things, but still. You might be worth poking at. You know, one of my big beefs with MOBAs especially is just I hate mouse control. So if it supports any sort of gamepad play, then it might be pretty nice. Anyway, they have announced it will be coming out in September of this year, and they have a big old trailer up for it, and this is the part that I love. The trailer has quotes from various big-name game outlets. And all the quotes, I look at them and I go, I don't doubt they said this. It doesn't mean anything about your game being good, though. So let's start. Let's start with some of these quotes. Number 1, Destructoid says, and I quote, "The game runs flawlessly." That was their first quote, and I laughed at that because of course it runs flawlessly. It was designed for mobile phones, and they're putting it on the Switch, which I guarantee you is more powerful than your average mobile phone. So, the game darn well better run flawlessly. Let's take a look at the next quote. There's nothing like it on Switch, says IGN. Yup. There are no other MOBAs on Switch. So that's true. I mean, shoot, that's the whole reason why I'm like, maybe I'll give it a shot. It's free. I don't really like MOBAs, but, you know, if they used more gamepad controls. So, it has that going for it, admittedly. Doesn't mean the game is good. And then, fast and dynamic MOBA gameplay, says GameSpot. Which, that's the closest thing to something nice, but, that could just be them pulling something out of their butt, yo. Whatever. Anyway, that's Arena of Valor. I am highly amused by it. Almost as amused as I am by some of these screenshots for Soul Calibur 6. We'll be talking about that in a hot minute. These are very interesting indeed. But moving right along, I mentioned that a Windjammers 2 has been announced. For those of you unfamiliar, Windjammers is an old Neo Geo game from Data East that has recently seen a surge in popularity as everyone has realized it is the greatest version of Pong ever made. Because that's what it is. It's two characters trying to throw a frisbee into a goal. But all these characters have different special abilities, and they can dodge and roll and do special shots that cause the frisbee to fly up in the air, and then they hit it, and the frisbee goes on fire, and it skims along the wall. It does all kinds of crazy crap. Basically, it is the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 of Pong. That's what Windjammers is. And it has a significant player base, especially in France. It's been gaining a lot of popularity as people are realizing, wow, we never noticed how cool this game was all those years ago. Now everyone's liking it. And it's seen a port by a company called .mu, which is based in France, to PS4 and Xbox One. And a Switch port is set for October 23rd, and that's very good. Now, .mu has a spotty history with their ports and with their emulation. Sometimes the games they port over, they might not exactly do a very good job with it. But because they cared so much about Windjammers, they did test it a lot. They put in a lot of effort. Apparently, it is a pretty darn good port because they knew that they had to do France proud with that one. Well, now a Windjammers 2 has been announced. But wait, Data East is out of business and has been out of business for quite a few years now. Who the heck is going to make Windjammers 2? .mu is going to do Windjammers 2. It is, right now, it just has a teaser trailer that's just all animation, no gameplay footage yet. It shows at least 2 new characters. And, it looks like Windjammers, but it's, all we've got is animation, so we don't have a lot to go on. And it is set to come out 2019 for Switch and PC. Now, I don't doubt it'll probably get PS4 and Xbox One releases as well, but their central focus is Switch and PC for Windjammers 2. We know nothing else about it. But I could see them making that release date, because again, you're just making really awesome Pong. And fingers crossed that it actually turns out well. I don't know if .mu has ever, made a game on their own before. I'm really curious to see how this turns out. Speaking of the Switch, you might be seeing this on YouTube. Diablo 3 is getting its Switch port, and that is getting commercials. It is coming this year. And honestly, didn't spend a lot of time with Diablo 3. Again, look, it's a personal thing, but I don't like mouse controls for controlling only one character. Mouse controls, to me, are for navigating menus and controlling, a bunch of characters. Like, RTS games, that's what mouse control is for. Simulation games, that's what mouse control is for. I loved Diablo, but I hated playing it with a mouse, because I feel it detaches me from the action. And so I never really got into Diablo 3. I know it got a console port years later, didn't really care by then. I might try the Switch port, though. Because aside from just having 2-player local play, I know you can do 4-player link play. I'm wondering if you could do 4-player local single system as well. Not 100% sure. But being able to play Diablo 3 with a control pad means a lot to me. So I might give that a go. Speaking of other things... Okay, look, here's the deal. Gamescom is going on, and that's the big European game show. Now, it hasn't started, it's starting today. And it's not as big as E3, it's not as big as Tokyo Game Show, but some games, do wind up getting shown off there, especially things that weren't quite ready for E3. We've actually got real gameplay footage of Devil May Cry 5. They have a playable demo of Devil May Cry 5 going on at Gamescom right now. So that's the kind of thing we see. Not a lot of big announcements, but a lot of smaller announcements. A lot of, here's that thing at E3 we didn't have a demo ready for. You can play it now. That's what tends to go down at Gamescom. So we are getting an interesting burst of information, and a lot of companies are really loving porting everything they have to Switch. So what's coming to Switch next? Grandia 1 and 2 HD. Yeah, no kidding. They're porting Grandia to the Switch. Now, Grandia 2 HD is already available on Steam, and I hear it actually launched with some problems compared to the original release of Grandia 2, but I think they've fixed that up. Grandia 1, though, is very, very interesting to me. Why? Well, because Grandia 1 was released on Sega Saturn and PlayStation 1. And it is very much a game that uses 2D sprites on a 3D background. And the big thing with Grandia 1 was the Saturn release was never released in English. We got the PS1 version of Grandia 1. And a lot of people have said over and over and over again, I remember this so much back in the day, that the Sega Saturn release was better, was a lot better. People kept talking about how much better the Sega Saturn release was. Well, now we're going to be getting Grandia 1 HD, and the question is, are you gonna really remaster it, or are you just gonna port the PS1 game? Are you going to take anything from the Saturn release? Is it really going to be enhanced? These are the questions I have to ask. Now, after looking at it, honestly, you know what? I should look up another comparison video right now. But after looking at it, I don't think the differences are that big. There's one thing I need to see. And I'm looking it up right now. Yeah, that might be the difference. I needed to look up some battle footage. Actually, yeah. Now that I'm looking at this Saturn version, it does look a lot better than the... It's a lot better. Well, hold on. I need to look into this crap. I was already up until I got an hour of sleep, okay? I need to look this up. I need to look at some battle footage. Yeah. Basically, my big question with Grandia 1 on Saturn was how they handled the battle environments. Because I remember on the PlayStation version, the environments... Yeah. The environments, that's the big difference. Okay. In the original Saturn version of Grandia 1, the fights actually took place on the field, like where you ran into the random encounter. The camera like zooms in, your party spreads out, and you fight all the enemies, right? And the environments are actually in 3D. On the PS1 version, when you get into an encounter, it takes you to a separate battle screen that uses a still screenshot of a section of the environment. So the background is 2D, but it is a low-quality 2D image of a 3D, previously real-time environment from the Sega Saturn. That was the big difference, and sometimes zooming in and out on this background caused some slowdown, and that would be where the problem was. Because other than that, like, I'm seeing the characters running around towns, and it's like, ooh, the shadows are slightly better on Sega Saturn. Ooh, this texture is slightly better. It wasn't that big of a difference. But the battle environments being a still screenshot instead of real-time polygons is definitely a big difference. I think that's what I'm looking at here. Actually, let me see. Like, I'm really trying to see what's going on here. No, maybe it is still screenshots on Saturn as well. It's harder to tell because, okay, I'm just gonna say it's harder to tell because the battle backgrounds are so much better on Saturn. So if it is still a still screenshot of a previously real-time environment, which it may well be, I hope they update all of those backgrounds for this supposed HD remaster. That would definitely be the sticking point. Because that would actually be something that would be really easy to remaster in HD. It would just take time. You just gotta re-screenshot these environments in like 4K or something. The question being if they're going to do that, if they can pull that off without breaking everything, and I'm very curious to see what will happen with that, because Grandia 1 and 2 are considered to be classics. A lot of people really like them. I never really got into the Grandia series, but I admit I never played Grandia 1, and some people prefer 1 to 2, some prefer 2 to 1. Either way, it will be very nice to see what they do with this Switch port. I'm excited. So, next bit of information, what have we got? Well, let's see, we got a release date for Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, which is the new game from Software. Looks to be much more action-packed than the other Souls games. It might not even really be a very Soulsy Souls game. Might not be a Souls game at all. It's hard to say. It's a little bit of a weird thing. But Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is scheduled for March 22nd. Meanwhile, though, Metal Wolf Chaos XD, which is a classic From Software mecha game wherein you play the President of the United States trying to take back America from evil Vice President Richard Hawke in a giant robot. It was never released in America. It was just too American for America. And now it's finally going to come to the States, because it was completely in English except for the menus. And it just didn't come to America. And now it finally is, as Metal Wolf Chaos XD, thanks to Devolver Digital. However, it has been delayed until mid-2019. I think we're all still expecting a 4th of July release for it. We shall see. Anyway, it is time for us to take a break. So here is In the STL by Little Chris here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for more GameBabble Live. That was Boot Up by LMI here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. and will continue doing so. Although if there is a sudden change in that, I will do my best to let you know on the GameBabble Live YouTube page, which is, of course, youtube.com/user/GameBabble Show. Anyway, so, the thing that I've been trying to look up and I'm super excited about, and I'm looking all the things up on, is my Soul Calibur 6 news. Let's just get right to that, because this is the thing I am most excited about. Now, Soul Calibur 6 with me has been a rocky ride. Because every time I look at the game, I keep seeing more stuff recycled from Soul Calibur 4, and I do deeply worry that Soul Calibur 6 will just be Soul Calibur 4 with less content. Thankfully, we are starting to see some interesting new content show up, but unfortunately, we're also seeing some questionable things. We have two pieces of news about Soul Calibur 6. The first is the very questionable. They have revealed that Tira will be a pre-order bonus / DLC character, which is perhaps one of the most flagrant pieces of just cutting content. Now, of course, Soul Calibur 6 is an alternate universe version of Soul Calibur 1. We're rewinding the clock back, and Tira doesn't show up until Soul Calibur 3. So a lot of people have said she shouldn't even be in Soul Calibur 1, except, come to find out, this was pre-Crazy Tira. This was, well, kind of pre-crazy. This was back when she was just an assassin and had just left an assassin's guild. She hasn't yet met up with Nightmare. So this could actually tell her story of how she met and sort of became obsessed with Nightmare. And that could be very interesting, though it is slightly disappointing as well, because, of course, we love Crazy Tira. The character design is actually interesting because it is her Soul Calibur 3 Player 1 outfit with the Player 2 hair colored green. So that as well, kind of interesting, although I have a feeling I know why they did that. I need to double check a few things, but I think that Player 2 hair was offered as a create a character option in one of the Soul Calibur games, so they could just copy paste that over. But it is annoying because Soul Calibur 6 definitely looks to be reusing a large number of assets from Soul Calibur 4, including, like, entire character models, and definitely a lot of the animations. So I don't think it's unreasonable to expect Soul Calibur 6 to have the same amount of content as Soul Calibur 4, and it certainly looks like it will be a few characters short of Soul Calibur 4. Although that may still make it more than Soul Calibur 5. Yeah, Namco's kind of been dropping the ball all over the place with Soul Calibur. So, I understand. I want to actually talk about this. This is actually a topic of discussion. I understand why they're making Tira a DLC pre-order bonus character. But at the same time, it's such obvious cut content. Because that is a character that should have been in the base game. Could have been in the base game. There's no good reason for her not to be in the base game. Don't give me that it doesn't fit with the storyline. It totally does. But no, they are... It's a character that should have been in the base game, and it sucks that they're going to be offering her as a pre-order bonus, because that is them literally going, okay, let's take our game, remove one character, and say you have to pre-order the game to do that. But I understand why, and this is certainly better than an online pass, at least. You see, let me explain the company reasoning behind this. See, pre-orders really matter to a company, not just because, oh, they want to get their money early, but because the first, 2 weeks of a game's release, definitely the first month, is when the sales really matter. That's when they're really totaled up. That's when they really count. It's very rare for a game to be a slow burn. Usually only Nintendo gets slow burn games that continue to sell month after month after month. Most games, first month or two, they sell really crazy, and then the sales just drop off. So they want to get as much sales as early as they can. What's more, remember that when it comes to brick and mortar stores, the companies don't actually make money off of your specific purchase. They make money off of the store ordering a bulk supply of their game that they sell to you. So your purchase, of course, matters, because the more people that buy a game, the more a store has to restock. But they want stores to stock as many copies of their game as possible in order to get the most sales. And stores don't want to order more copies of a game than they think they can sell through, because otherwise they wind up losing money on it. So, a lot of stores really push pre-orders, because that means that they can look at the pre-order numbers and go, this is how many copies of a game we should order. Like, if 5 people pre-order a game, that flags it in the system as, hey, there's a good amount of interest in this game. We got to get that. We've got 5 pretty much guaranteed purchases, and we should probably order 5 more. Maybe make it 10 more. Maybe make an order of 15. So of course, companies want you to pre-order, to show the amount of interest there is in a game, in order to get game stores to make big purchases of their games. And so they want to do something to entice users to pre-order. And one of the things they did in the recent past was the online pass. For a while, they did this thing where they were like, too many people are buying our games used, so you have to buy the game new in order to get a passcode that lets you play your game online. And there was huge backlash for that, because that meant you couldn't really, you couldn't rent a game and find out if the online is any good or not. You couldn't I actually remember that happening. I wanted to rent Far Cry because I have no interest in Far Cry, but a bunch of my friends were playing co-op, and I was like, oh, I'll rent that and join you. Oh, wait, I have to buy an online pass in order to play that with you. Screw that. Because, yeah, if you didn't buy the game new, you had to go purchase an online pass. And that was such complete BS. There was massive fan outcry, and online passes were stricken from games. They didn't do that anymore. But they still want to encourage people to buy the game new, to buy the game day one, to pre-order the game. So they come up with pre-order bonuses. And sometimes it's cool. Sometimes it's like, oh, hey, here's a bonus outfit. You know, the general DLC rules apply when it comes to pre-order bonuses. Hey, here's a bonus outfit is totally cool, because it doesn't, like, ruin the game if you can't get it. It doesn't feel so much like cut content as it does a bonus thing. But an entire character is a little bit on the iffy side. Especially when it's a character that has been in the base game of the past 3 games. So this definitely has some people peeved. And in general, you don't want to announce how much DLC your game is going to have before release, though a lot of fighting games have been doing this. I think Dragon Ball FighterZ did this. I know Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite did this infamously poorly, and Street Fighter Cross Tekken utterly stumbled when they did it. So it can be iffy. And by the way, Namco Bandai has already announced there will be a season pass that adds more characters to the game. Fingers crossed they're actually new characters and not just, oh yeah, here's more characters from Soul Calibur 4 that we just didn't port over yet. So that part has me a little iffy. The other thing they revealed, though, is that custom characters are getting their own story mode. Their custom characters will return. They have a story mode. And what makes it interesting is that this time you have a race selection. There are 16 different races that you can play as, including, most relevant to me, lizard men and bunny girls. Yes, bunny girls are now a race in Soul Calibur. They are called the Outcasts, who supposedly live deep in the mountains of Europe and are said to be descendants of those cursed by the gods. Quote, unquote, because of their fearsome forms, they often face persecution. Yes, the fearsome form of a bunny girl. Having said that, looking at some of the screenshots, it looks like they're literally just characters that start with the awful bunny ear accessory already equipped on them from previous Soul Calibur created characters, so that's kind of disappointing. But being able to make a custom lizard man, major selling point. Major selling point to me. Lizard Man's my favorite Soul Calibur character. I'm hoping he still shows up. But being able to make my own lizard man very much makes me happy. Other races that have been seen include, let's see, skeletons. You can make a skeleton warrior. I've seen, like, samurai skeletons and knight skeletons, all sorts of skeletons. So if you're looking at making, say, Momonga from Overlord, that's happening. Especially because I believe there is a wizard class. Moving on from that, though, we see automatons. We see angels, which are called lost souls, mummies, elves, vampires, orcs. I saw a really awesome demon girl with horns and fantastic-looking wings that make me, as someone who is going to play a bunny girl, very jealous because, oh egad, those ears look freaking terrible. But, yeah, we are seeing a lot of really weird races. And it's here that you're going to go, wait. Wasn't Soul Calibur supposed to be loosely based on history? Yeah, this is supposed to be like a redo of that. It definitely looks like they're adding more fantasy elements, and that looks to revolve around something called, like, the Astral Rift. Because they're talking about how, like, the lost souls use their wings to traverse the Astral Rift, and how these are creatures that have emerged from the Astral Rift and things like that. There's all this talk of an Astral Rift. So, apparently, it would appear that the Soul Calibur, or actually the Soul Edge, the seed of evil, when the Soul Edge was found, it made that big pillar in the sky. The seed of evil, it would appear, has opened up a rift in the astral plane that's causing all sorts of chaos, and that is canonically plausible because that is how Darth Vader and Yoda wound up in Soul Calibur. Yes, there was a story explanation for that. It was because astral rift created by the Soul Edge. So, I mean, if you can get Darth Vader and Yoda over there, then you throw out all the rules. And Lizardmen, of course, have always been part of Soul Calibur. They're made by that one weird cult, wasn't it, like the Kunpeitku? I remember the Kunpeitku Shrine, because of course that's Lizardman's stage. I like Lizardman. I'm very excited to be able to make a custom Lizardman, and I look at this create a character story mode, which does have cutscenes, which does have you meeting all these other characters, and sometimes you'll get into random battles with different user-created characters that it downloads off the internet, so that's going to be interesting. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, darn it, this makes me want Soul Calibur 6. So, guess they've got me on the hook for that one. I'm just hoping that Soul Calibur 6 turns out all right. Having said that, let's move on to the other one, Dead or Alive 6. They did show Lei Feng and Hitomi for Dead or Alive 6, along with a pirate ship stage with a kraken and a treasure room full of hazards. And that's one of the things I like. DOA 6, I'm very on the fence about. Because they are saying, oh, we're going to tone down the fan service and we're going to crank up the action. And a lot of it's a little iffy, but seeing that Kraken stage hazard really gave me some hope, because that's the kind of over-the-top nonsense that I like about Dead or Alive, and it does make me say maybe this will turn out okay. I am still on the fence, though. As I've explained many times, Dead or Alive doesn't really change a whole lot between games in terms of gameplay. They make some massive system revisions, like to how holds work. There are things that make one Dead or Alive better than the others, but in terms of moveset, I've been following it, and these characters have generally had the same moves for a long time. The gameplay generally seems very similar, and back when people hacked the alpha version of Dead or Alive 5, they found the code for Dead or Alive Dimensions in there, and Dead or Alive Dimensions was, of course, built off 4, 4 was built off 3, 3 was built off 2, 2 was built off 1, 1 was built off Virtua Fighter 2. There may actually still be bits of Virtua Fighter 2 code in Dead or Alive 6. It is hard to say. But, if that is the case, that is amazing, because I just remembered Sega lost the source code for Virtua Fighter 2. So there is a chance that somehow the only remaining pieces of Virtua Fighter 2's source code is in Dead or Alive 6. I just realized that, and that amuses me. But okay, I'm a little iffy, though, because Dead or Alive 5 had added so many characters and so much content, and to me, because there's so little being changed between each Dead or Alive game, I need all of my content from Dead or Alive 5 to come back. This shouldn't be, I really hope Mila comes back. No, Mila should be a definite. I really hope Lisa comes back. No, Lisa should be a definite. If they cut any of these characters, then Dead or Alive 6 is just dead to me. Pun totally intended there. It wasn't, but now it was. But this is what I'm talking about, and I'm worried because I want to review this game. But I'm very, very, very iffy on buying it. Like, in fact, I will just outright say, no Lisa, no sale. Period. Lisa makes Dead or Alive to me. Her fighting style, is way more dynamic, and thus it makes way more sense to me. I kind of can't enjoy Dead or Alive without Lisa. So if she's not in the game, which there's some speculation she might not be because they might have poorly killed her off in the background of Dead or Alive 5. It's really unclear. If she doesn't come back, no sale. If I see a significant decrease in the amount of content, then no sale. I have no problems with sticking to Dead or Alive 5, which I feel is a rather good game. So I've been deliberating over this. I'm like, what am I going to do about Dead or Alive 6? And then I remembered, had to check something, because there was a chance that we do have a local rental store, but the super local one just closed down. The Family Video on Vail did close down like a few weeks ago. The Marco's Pizza is still there, but the Family Video is gone now. There is still another Family Video a bit further down the road. They took all their stock. So there's a chance I could rent it from Family Video, but I didn't want to take that chance. I want to play that game as soon as possible, and I don't want to pay money for it. So I was like, wait a second, is GameFly still a thing? So to anyone wondering if GameFly is still a thing, the answer is yes, GameFly is still a thing. I will be signing up for GameFly so I can review Dead or Alive 6. And that will probably be the only game I get. Who knows? It'll be a good trial run for GameFly. But I will be getting a GameFly membership just to find out if Dead or Alive 6 is any good or not. Anyway, though, it is time for us to take yet another break. So here is When the Curtain Falls by Greta Van Fleet here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. And please stay tuned for more GameBabble Live. Thank you so much for listening and enjoy the music. That was Strip That Down by Liam Payne featuring Quavo here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. and apparently will continue to do so. Anyway, moving right along to more video game news and information, can I just say, wow, King K. Rool looks way more useful in an actual match. Nintendo UK just posted a video of King K. Rool versus Solid Snake from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And yeah, that looks a lot better. See, as you might know, other week, K. Rool was revealed to be a character for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and they showed his character trailer, and it's great, and it's got lots of references to his past moves and stuff. But in that trailer, I'm gonna be honest, he looked really bad. Like, not in terms of, like, visually, but all of his moves looked really, really stiff. And I was like, I don't know how this is gonna work. Like, it looked like his moves just didn't flow together well. Actually seeing him in action fighting Snake, his moves flow together perfectly. They all look useful. He's almost like a Boomerang-centric character? Knows Foon Ken, it seems. No, like, he appears to, number one, his arms have really good reach. He's not that slow, and that ground slam looks like it's going to be used a lot. And it looks like he can throw, he has, of course, his crown boomerang, which was one of his boss moves from, like, the original Donkey Kong Country. Takes his crown, throws it out, it acts like a boomerang. Looks like he can move before the crown gets back to him. That's what the trailer didn't show. They just showed him throwing the crown neutral, because that's what he does in his actual game. But he can move before the crown gets back to him, and then, the crown still returns to him. It arcs around. In fact, there might be some interesting tech of throwing the crown out and then running away from the crown and having it chase you. I'm not sure if that'll work, but that's something to try. You know what did work, though, was his friggin' pirate cannon. One of his moves is he pulls out the big ol' musket or whatever, elephant gun, and shoots a giant cannonball out of it, which was from Donkey Kong Country 2. And I was like, that doesn't look that useful. In this video, in this fight, it looks useful, because he can move before the cannonball finishes traveling across the screen. And what he does in this match, he shoots out the cannonball, and then the cannonball is a very slow moving projectile. So he shoots out a cannonball, and then he kicks Snake into the cannonball, and Snake bounces off the cannonball and flies off screen and gets smashed out. And that is amazing. Like, I'm not even doing the description justice. It honestly looks like a pretty dirty move. Because it looks like, yeah, you shoot out the cannonball, knock someone into it, they just get KO'd. Like, if you shoot it off the edge of the stage like that, that could be nasty. That could be really good for edge guarding. Someone's trying to recover. Oh, look out, here's a cannonball. Don't bump into that. Cannonball's friggin' huge. K. Rool looks like he got real potential now. So, all you K. Rool fans, get hyped for that. This is, this guy's looking promising. It might be the best heavyweight we've got, although that depends on if you count Ridley as a heavyweight, because I'm hearing very strong reports from people who played Ridley that Ridley was really good. And this is good, because a lot of people have been complaining that the heavyweights in Smash aren't very good, Bowser not being very good. Smash Ultimate really looks to be trying to address a lot of issues, like they nerfed the crap out of poor Fox. Anyway, moving on though. Yeah, I was just checking up on what's going on with Smash Ultimate, went to their Twitter and found this out. Saints Row the Third is coming to Nintendo Switch. Okay. You know what? Portable Row? I'll pick that up. Now, mind you, I wish that it was Saints Row 2, because that's the best one, but from my understanding, Saints Row 2 is Saints Row 1 and 2 are in some kind of weird legal quagmire. But, hey, I will take Saints Row the Third for Nintendo Switch. That sounds like it will be a hoot. Moving on, though. Where was I? Let's see. Okay, so Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, the new game from Igarashi, the guy who's in charge of Castlevania after Symphony of the Night, and is basically the new Castlevania minus Konami game. It has been delayed until 2019 with the Vita version being canceled. No big surprise there, as you will not be able to produce physical Vita games in America. Pretty soonish, to be honest. Let's see. They've shown some of Life is Strange 2, which will actually be a tale of two brothers of Hispanic heritage, one younger and one older, and the younger one learns from what the older one does. And okay, that's a thing. Get excited, Life is Strange fans. Meanwhile, Ark the Lad is joining Phantasy Star and Star Ocean in the classic JRPGs being thrown on smartphones and making everyone sad. Prior to them, we had quite a few others, including Breath of Fire, whose smartphone version that was Japan only has closed down a couple months ago. Yeah, I'm not particularly happy about this either. The game's called Ark the Lad R, and yeah, it's Ark the Lad on smartphone. Moving on, though, Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom has a release date for November 6th. That would be... Okay, I've talked about this a couple times, but for some bizarre reason, Wonder Boy 3, Dragon's Curse, has suddenly become super popular and everyone's trying to recreate it. And we've got like a bunch of these coming that are out and are coming out, and a French company actually did do a full-on remake of Wonder Boy 3 Dragon's Curse, Dragon's Trap, whatever. They did actually do a full-on HD remake with the ability to switch the graphics from gorgeous new HD sprites to classic sprites and switch the music from the new music to the classic music on the fly while you play, recreating the original Sega Master System gameplay. Meanwhile, the original developers of the game have actually gone off to create Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom, which is set to be inspired by that game, but be a new version of it. And I've been kind of half following that, and apparently we finally have a release date of November 6th. Also, Penguin Coon Wars, we mentioned that earlier, that should be coming out next week. It is shipping out. The company is showing their physical copies. They have gone gold. They are moving out. Moving on. Tekken 7 is adding Anna Williams and Lei Wulong on September 6th. So, if you're a fan of either of those, they will be coming September 6th. Meanwhile, Dragon Ball FighterZ is going to have Cooler in late September. And of course, we're all waiting on late this month, early next month is when we will be getting Pullum Perna and Volcano Rosso for Fighting EX Layer. I cannot wait because that is the official point when I start caring about Fighting EX Layer again. I've been waiting on Pullum Perna. So, super duper excited about that. And while we're on the subject of fighting games, Jump Force has revealed Sanji, Marshall D. Teach, aka Blackbeard, Gon from Hunter x Hunter, Hisoka, Sabo, and Vegeta are all in the roster. They've all been shown. They got new trailers out. Hooray. Let us hope the game is actually good. Moving on. We'll talk about that one later. Let's see. Hey, Luigi's Mansion is coming to 3DS. They mentioned that earlier. We have a release date of October 19th for Luigi's Mansion. Also, that reminds me. Let me bring that up again. We have a release date for Shenmue 3. Shenmue 3 will be coming out August 27th, 2019. So that means that it will be out in essentially a year. Until then, you've got Shenmue 1 and 2 coming out in HD. Actually, speaking of delays, thank you for reminding me. Thank you for reminding me of that too. Let me bring that back up. The Spyro Reignited trilogy has been delayed until November 13th. So they are giving it another 2 months. This comes after a significant controversy where it had been announced that only Spyro 1 would actually be on the disc. When you buy a physical copy of the Spyro Reignited trilogy, when you pop it in, it would then start downloading Spyro 2 and 3. Only Spyro 1 would be on the disc. Now, a bunch of people have said, why does that even matter? Everyone has an internet connection. The game's already installed to your hard drive. Well, because it defeats the purpose of a physical release. Some people have actually wondered about this. The people who care about physical releases are generally collectors. They want a hard copy of the game. Because there will come a time when they will not be able to connect to that server and download Spyro 2 and 3. And can you imagine that? You go through all this trouble remaking Spyro 1, 2, and 3, and then you skip ahead, 10, 15 years in the future, you pop in Spyro Reignited Trilogy, and, oh shoot, you deleted the game, you have to reinstall it, and you can only play Spyro 1, 2, and 3 have vanished into the ether. Meanwhile, you would still be able to play your Spyro 1, 2, and 3 back on PS1. It's a little bit silly. On top of that, let us not forget that downloads are slower than installs, and that the PS4 has significantly, everything you put in it has to install to the hard drive, so your hard drive fills up super fast, so you're constantly deleting things from your hard drive. So, okay, fine, you get Spyro Reignited Trilogy, you pop it in, you install the other two games, and it's it's all good. And then you skip ahead, and it's like, oh shoot, I'm running out of space, I haven't played Spyro Reignited Trilogy in a hot minute, let's just delete that, I get to keep my save files. Skip ahead a little bit later, you're like, oh yeah, I want to play Spyro Reignited Trilogy again. You have to pop it in, and now you have to wait while, I don't know, probably 60 gigs download. It's hard to say. Spyro 2 and 3 would not be a small download. I am expecting a 30 to 60 gig download there, and that would be torture. Not to mention, on launch day, when this game comes out, the PSN is going to be bogged the heck down. and people will be unable to, and it'll take people forever to download the games. If on that day the PSN doesn't just crash, because there's other games coming out that will also be hogging those servers, there is always a chance that PSN will just plain crash, and then, oh hey, you've got Spyro Reignited Trilogy, but you can only play the first game. So everyone is hoping that this delay means they'll put the other 2 games on the disc. Having said that, there is absolutely no reason to believe this would actually happen, other than the fact that it would be the most logical reason to delay the Spyro Reignited Trilogy. Everyone is going, please put the other 2 games on the disc. But, yeah, we don't know. We don't know. It could just be that the games are in a very, very sorry state. What's more, the remake is being handled by Toys for Bob and not Vicarious Visions. And while I have a soft spot for Toys for Bob, I'm also a little iffy. They are a significantly smaller company. I don't know where Comper came from. Because significantly smaller company than Vicarious Visions is. And Spyro, I feel, is a more complex game than Crash Bandicoot. I am significantly worried, especially with this delay and the fact that the other 2 games originally weren't going to be on the disc and all this stupid crap. I am concerned that the Spyro Reignited Trilogy might turn out really, really bad. There is honestly a good chance that could happen. Maybe this just won't be a good remake. Remember, they're not just copy-pasting the code over. They have to look at the old game, look at the stage designs, look at the data, and rebuild all of that effectively from scratch. So there's a very good chance the Spyro Reignited Trilogy might just be a dumpster fire. We will certainly find out when the time comes. Oh shoot, just looking at speaking of the time coming, it's time for us to take a break. So here is Portland by Drake featuring Hey More Quavo and Travis Scott here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. That was Moth into Flame by Metallica here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. So I don't know if I mentioned this last week or not, but Uppers is coming to America. For anyone unfamiliar, Uppers is a beat-em-up from the creators of Senran Kagura, where you play a tag team of 2 guys, and there are 2 female characters in it as well, who go to this island and you're beating up people, and there's like a ton of fangirls watching the fights who are shouting out requests, and you beat up guys and impress girls. And yeah, a lot of people in America played the demo and loved it and couldn't wait to get their hands on it, but the game flopped in Japan. The game flopped super legendarily hard in Japan. And so it was like, yeah, no, we're not going to release this game in America. And that was back in 2016. Well, they've recently announced that Uppers is coming to the US on PS4 and PC this year. Before the end of the year, sometime, probably in winter, we will be getting Uppers. And a lot of people, the opinions on it are mixed, but they are saying that this version of Uppers, which is coming to PC and PS4, and the PS4 release will have a physical release, is remastered. It will be running 1080p 60 FPS, so that will be very nice. And I just checked, the Steam page confirms that it will indeed come with DLC character Daidoji from Senran Kagura. She will not be DLC again. She will be packed in with the game. So that's very exciting. And I'm excited to play the game, because Senran Kagura is a pretty darn fun beat-em-up, and this is, maybe not the deepest, but it's fun. And this looks to be a very different take on things. It seems more like a low-budget version of Yakuza, where, like Senran Kagura, the combat is lots of hits in midair. This one is much more ground-based, but has a ton of environmental interaction where you can, like, pick up cars and slam people into manholes and uppercut them into helicopters and spin around poles and dance on people's faces, and it's looking to be a pretty fun game. I look forward to actually getting a chance to try it. Opinions are, of course, split on if it's just a mediocre brawler or something really worthwhile. There's a lot of people who are excited. There's also a lot of people who are very disappointed that it is not coming to Vita in the US. It's like, why not? It was originally a Vita game. What's the deal here? And the answer, of course, is the fact that the Vita it isn't very successful here in the US. But at the same time, it's kind of a weird situation because it seems like a lot of the people who were very excited for it were excited for it because it was on Vita. So, yeah, it's kind of a weird situation with that one. Anyway, moving right along, Monster Hunter World has just been announced as being the first Capcom game to ship 10 million units worldwide. Meaning that this makes Monster Hunter World Capcom's most successful game. Now, some people pointed out that Resident Evil 5 sold 15 million units, but that was across 3 SKUs. That was across 3 different releases of Resident Evil 5. You know, that's counting Resident Evil 5 and the Gold Edition. Apparently there's some other edition. This is just on one SKU. Monster Hunter World has sold 10 million copies. One release. So good on them. Much to the inevitable disappointment of the super hardcore Monster Hunter fans, because Monster Hunter World, of course, streamlined, simplified, smoothed things out, which makes it appeal a lot more to a general audience, which I can confirm. Because I'm going to be honest, I hate the Monster Hunter games. I've given them shot after shot after shot. I just don't like the Monster Hunter games, but I kind of liked Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter Classic has a very particular and weird play style that always came off as very stiff and awkward. And World really smoothed things out. But at the same time, I could see that being like, this doesn't feel like a proper Monster Hunter game. This feels dumbed down for the casuals, and yeah, that was what it needed to continue to reach an even wider audience of people who don't play Monster Hunter. Because up until Monster Hunter World, America didn't play Monster Hunter. Period. And they tried to make it a Monster Hunter for America with Lost Planet 2. But that never took off in America. It did pretty darn well in Japan, but in America it only did, okay. So they've been trying to figure out a way to get Monster Hunter to catch on outside of Japan with a larger audience, and World has certainly done that. And the result? 10 million units sold. Moving on, some more unfortunate news. Unsho Ishizuka, the Japanese voice of Professor Oak, old Joseph Joestar, Hercule, and Heihachi's second voice actor, has passed away. It's amazing, Heihachi has now lost 2 voice actors. That is indeed sad, and also very strange, because I think this guy might have replaced Heihachi's voice actor on a few other roles as well, so it's really weird that, like, the voice of Heihachi's replacement voice has also passed away. Moving on, though, here's something really weird. There is a movie event called The Making of a Tomb Raider, which will be in select theaters September 12th, and people who attend it will get exclusive in-game item for Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which comes out September 14th. And I'm going to be honest, it sounds really dumb, because it's not making of Tomb Raider, it's making of a Tomb Raider. Apparently, the idea is that they're going to show in-game clips and footage from the past couple Tomb Raider reboot games to explain Lara Croft's backstory, while cutting back to professional stuntwoman Claire Marie doing Tomb Raider-inspired stunts and talking about what it takes to pull off some of the things that Lara Croft does in the game, talking about how it is actually possible to do these things, as well as the difficulty in performing them, and that seems to be the central focus, not the actual making of the game or anything. It's a focus on Lara Croft's backstory. It sounds really dumb is what it sounds like. Sponsored by Coca-Cola, and they'll be selling special, like, Coca-Cola Tomb Raider bottles. Whatever. It's video game news. It'll be in theaters September 12th. If you're, like, a super hardcore fan of the Tomb Raider reboot, maybe you'll like it. I don't know. It sounds kind of dumb. Moving on. Super Neptunia RPG, which is the weird Valkyrie Profile clone thing, made by, like, a kind of Western developer, has been moved from fall 2018 to spring 2019. And speaking of RPGs, Digimon Survive. More information has come out about that. It is a survival RPG strategy game coming to PS4, Xbox One, PC, and Switch. And they have confirmed, yes, humans will die in this game. Depending on your choices, your various classmates in Digimon Survive could die. Which, a lot of people are going to look at that and go, wow, that's a really dark turn for a Digimon game. Well, that's what they've been doing. A lot of the reason Digimon games have been toying around with the fact that Digimon kind of went on hiatus for I want to say 6-7 years. So now a lot of their fans are a lot older, and they're like, hey, we can play around with this. We can do stuff Pokemon can't really do because most of our fans are older now. So let's make games aimed at a older audience that still use the Digimon premise. And yeah, the idea is that, like, a bunch of high school kids find themselves trapped in the digital world trying to survive, fending off enemies with their Digimon and trying to survive and not die. I'm a little iffy on it because the visual style, yeah, it looks a little dry in some ways. It looks a little beautiful in other ways. It's really hard to tell. It could go either way, but I appreciate the fact that Bandai is willing to do something this adventurous with Digimon. Also, apparently, SRPG Studio is out on Steam, because they said that comes out like the 20th, and it's 21st now, so should be out. Along with Shozo Kaga, who is the creator of Fire Emblem's Vestiria Saga, which was made in SRPG Studio. It's not made by the RPG Maker people, but it is an RPG Maker-like program for making your own strategy RPGs. So you can look that up on Switch, and that could be, or not Switch, on Steam. Sorry, my bad. That could be kind of interesting if that's your kind of thing. And let's see, anything else I need to mention before we take a break and hit up our last topic? No? So I do believe it is... Actually, no, we got a little bit of time. Let's move on to our VR section. First of all, at Gamescom, they have revealed a new VR-supported game. You can play it without VR, but it will have a VR version called Falcon Age. It is a first-person, semi-sci-fi falconeering game. That's right. You're in first person. You can play it with a DualShock controller or with two moves. And yeah, you are, like, in the desert training your falcon and breaking into a high-tech base full of robots by commanding your falcon to attack things while you use, like, a laser club whip flail thing to also manipulate objects and solve puzzles. And I'm like, a falconeering game. A first-person falconeering game. That's interesting. That's something I haven't seen before. All right, lay it on me. The other big bit of excitement comes for what's coming out next week, which is Firewall 0 Hour. Firewall 0 Hour is a competitive online, though it does feature single player against bots, tactical first-person squad-based first-person shooter, which features 12 different characters you can play as, and you form up into a team, try and take out another team, and collect data from this laptop. It will support both the DualShock 4 and the PlayStation Aim controller. There will be a PlayStation Aim bundle, and it looks really impressive. The graphics look pretty darn nice. It looks like a relatively fleshed out and interesting game, and having played first-person shooters in VR, I can safely say they are way more fun. I gotta be honest, not the biggest fan of first-person shooters. They don't appeal that much to me anymore. But in VR, it is a very different experience, because your gun is not tethered to your head. You can, actually look to the left, aim to the right, and move to the forward. That's a thing you can do in VR, and that sometimes has uses, but mostly overall it just has a very different feel when you are moving around a gun with one-to-one motion tracking. It makes playing a first-person shooter in VR feel more like laser tag or paintball. It feels much closer to real life. It's a very interesting experience. I've had a lot of fun with it. Just playing freaking, what was it called? Duty Calls? I think they actually made a game called, or was it Call of, I forget. There's this really low budget VR first person shooter that, despite looking like a dumpster fire, was really, really, really fun to play. And I very much look forward to playing a more fleshed out VR first person shooter in squads. Again, I'm very happy that it has a single player mode. Looks like it has all of the comfort settings you want and the ability to turn them off, so you can have snap turning or smooth turning. You can have the screen. You can have the screen use blinders when you're dashing, or you can hopefully turn that off, because I can't stand blinders in my VR games. I'm very excited to play this. As I mentioned, it looks like we've got 3 VR games all coming out for the PlayStation VR next week. So that is very nice to see. I gotta be honest, I've taken a little bit of a break from my VR, but after looking at some Firewall 0 Hour footage, I am dusting that sucker off probably tonight or tomorrow. I love my VR. I've just sort of taken a bit of a break from it. Need to do a little bit more cleaning in my game room, and that is happening tonight. I'm very excited for Firewall 0 Hour. That is a game that has to happen. So that is a positive thing. But on the negative, Ace Combat 7 has me worried, and we'll talk about that after the break. So until then, here is Okra by Tyler, the Creator, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. That was Live in the Moment by Portugal the Man, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to the last segment of this week's GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m., and will continue to do so. Although, if there are any changes or updates, you can find information on that on the GameBabble YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/user/GameBabble show. So, before the break, I was talking about VR, the PlayStation VR in particular, how next week we've got 3 VR games coming out this week. We've at least got a crazy music mixer in VR, and one of which is a game called Firewall 0 Hour, which is tactical first-person shooter, competitive online thing in VR with 12 different characters. Looks really promising. Gonna use the PlayStation Aim. You can also play it with DualShock 4 controller. I look forward to giving it a chance. Also, a VR falconry game called Falcon Age has been announced. That'll be playable outside of VR as well, but it will support VR. Which brings us to Ace Combat 7. When Ace Combat 7 was first announced, they said it would support PlayStation VR. And every time they showed it, they were like, here's the VR mode, try our VR mode in Ace Combat 7. And people were like, oh yeah, Ace Combat 7 is going to be the next Resident Evil 7. Because Resident Evil 7, the entire game can be played in VR. Then things started to get a little iffy. They would later say, okay, the whole campaign can't be played in VR, but there will be a separate VR mode. And people are like, oh no, is this going to be like Gran Turismo Sport? And they're like, no, it'll be more than one mission, quote unquote. From Road to VR, they said, far from being just a single mission, the VR mode is apparently going to offer, quote, several hours of VR gameplay, according to David Bonacci, brand manager at Bandai Namco Entertainment America. They even said that it would have 12 to 15 hours of VR content. So people are like, great, we'd love to know more information. But they've been really cagey about it. They haven't really told us what the VR content is like. And recently, a trailer went up on the PlayStation channel, which didn't mention PSVR at all. And they've kind of been leaving it out of things. This had people worried. But then they saw a trailer for the multi-platform release, because it has gone multi-platform. It'll be on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. And that one says PlayStation VR. But then translating the Japanese website, it says that only a VR mission, singular, would be playable in the game. However, that could be a Google translation error, as it could translate mission, because mission could be used to be singular or plural in this case, so we don't really know. Meanwhile, the AceCombat.com website says, and I quote, virtual combat, VR missions made exclusively for the PlayStation VR provide unprecedented immersion. That's missions, plural. So the amount of VR content is really, really questionable. I think the thing that makes it sad is that if they do screw us over and only include a single VR mission, they'd get a pass on it. Like, it wouldn't be a controversy, even though I feel it deserves to be. They heavily pushed VR, but yet, and now they're like trying to walk it back, and it's a question of if there's really going to be that much VR combat in Ace Combat 7. I mentioned this because there really should have been a controversy over Gran Turismo Sport. Gran Turismo Sport was pushed super hard for its VR stuff. They showed it at tons of game shows with you being able to race against a bunch of cars in VR. Everyone was talking about how great it was. The game is about to come out. They're doing all these ads talking about how PlayStation VR Gran Turismo is the future. Like, Game FAQs was full of ads. Like, they almost made it sound like Gran Turismo Sport was VR only, which it wasn't. There was even a bundle of the PlayStation VR with Gran Turismo Sport. The game comes out, and all you can do is race against a single car in VR. At launch, you couldn't even do time trials. A couple months later, they patched in the ability to do time trials in VR. But while you could race any course with any car, you could only race against one stupid AI car. And that was it. And Sony was pushing this really, really heavily as being this big VR deal, and yet the VR was so neutered. And some people might say, well, that's just not possible. Well, guess what? Drive Club was able to have the entire game playable in VR. Yeah, but it took a graphical hit. Yeah, because they cranked the game up from 30 FPS to 60 FPS just for VR. What's more, Wipeout Omega Collection has recently had PlayStation VR support patched in, and that runs at above 1080p sampled down, even on a regular PS4. You can absolutely do a full game in VR, and yet, despite Gran Turismo Sport really, really pushing its VR angle, it had barely any VR support, and there was practically no controversy over it, even though it really came off as false advertising. Then again, apparently Gran Turismo Sport wasn't that good anyway. A lot of people were just disappointed in it in general without the VR. So, now the question is, will Ace Combat 7 really provide several hours of VR gameplay? And this is something I want to know, because to be honest, I'm not a big Ace Combat fan. I've tried, I just can't get into those kinds of games. But I'd probably really like it in VR. I'd like to try it in VR. And so my purchase of the game is dependent entirely on if I get 12 to 15 hours of VR content. Honestly, I'd be fine with 2 hours of VR content. Just as long as it's not a single mission, as long as there is some meat to the VR. And it's such a weird thing, because Bandai Namco has been pushing VR very hard. They have their own special VR arcades in Japan with special VR setups. They have been experimenting with VR modes in a bunch of their games, and yet, are they not going to go all in with Ace Combat 7 in VR? And it's irritating, because this is what people want. The reality is, like I said, 3 VR games come out for the PlayStation VR next week. Every week, new VR games are coming out for PlayStation VR. There's over 100 games on the PlayStation VR. But they're all indie titles. They're all download only. They're all things that not really a lot of people talk about. How often do you hear people talk about Apex Construct, or Raw Data, or Spark, or Sprint Vector, or, I don't know, Killing Floor Incursion? How often do people actually talk about these games? Not very often. I know even people who own PlayStation VRs who don't know how much stuff is available for them to play on their PlayStation VR because it's all digital. And so you go to the store, you look at boxed releases, you don't see a lot that, say, supports PlayStation VR. You see a lot of them in the bargain bin. There's not a lot out there that are getting physical releases, and more importantly, there's not a lot from big long-running franchises, because that's what people want. They don't really care about the indie games. They want to play a big franchise in VR. Resident Evil 7 moved systems, and Ace Combat 7 could as well if it has a real VR mode. Same thing with Gran Turismo, if it had a real VR mode that really would have pushed units. Because what people want, okay? You know what moves VR units is when you release a game and it can be played normally or in VR. And it's part of a long-running franchise that people already love. And they're playing it and they're loving the game. And then they notice, wow, there's this VR mode sitting there. There's a VR option and I can't try it and I really love the game. Maybe I should try this game in VR. And then they buy a PlayStation VR and they find out how cool it all is. That's how you move units. You need to have games that can be played normally and in VR, so people playing on a normal TV gradually begin to wonder, should I maybe pick up a PlayStation VR to find out what this is like in there? You gotta get them curious, and that would be the way to get them curious, to take an existing awesome game and then have that as an option. That's how you do it. So this is why Ace Combat 7 having a proper fleshed out PlayStation VR mode would have been really nice. And right now, Bandai Namco is just not letting us know what kind of VR we're going to get with Ace Combat 7. Whew. So, I do believe that about wraps up the show for today. We will be back next week, likely on Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m., for more video game news and information here on GameBabble Live on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Right now, the only things that would change that is if a student desperately needs that time slot, in which case I will completely surrender that to them and enjoy their show, and I'll let you know when it moves to if that happens, but right now it's looking fine. Or, depending on what happens with my potential internship at the zoo, fingers crossed for that, I'm still waiting on a response there, but I'm guessing they were waiting for the semester to start, which it certainly looks like by the number of students here that it has. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me on today's GameBabble Live. See you again next week. It's time to kick you back to the music. So here is Numb by Meg Myers, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening.